Hi, guys, and welcome to episode number 303. This is a special treat. I am literally recording this episode on location, if you're watching the video version of this, from Podcast Movement 2023. And I'm going to give you a secret. I'm literally recording to you the exact workshop training that I'm going to be delivering here as a speaker at Podcast Movement this week. And here is really our little secret. I am using this recording to practice my talk at Podcast Movement. So let's see how well I do. You guys always get the behind the scenes here when you tap into me at this podcast. If we don't know each other yet, I'm April Beach. I am the founder of the Sweet Life Company, and we help subject matter experts, coaches, and consultants scale their business with $1 million programs and content licensing. And this entire show is designed to give you guys free trainings and coaching that you would pay thousands of dollars worth somewhere else. So I'm super glad that you're here. Couple of prerequisites here as we dive in. This, like I said, is the workshop that I'm delivering here at Podcast Movement Live 2 days from now. So our audio is not going to be pristine. I'm sitting here in the Riverside booth recording this, which is so cool. Riverside is a software we use to record this show. We have for years. We love these guys. And they were nice enough to give me a table here so I could record this show for you. So I'm super stoked about this. But you know, the sounds might be a little off. You guys are used to that, though, because, you know, behind the scenes at the beach house where my home studio is, you're usually going to hear loud noises and kids and dogs anyway. So here we go. Today, I'm delivering you a workshop that is going to find the solution for 3 steps to build a profitable business from your podcast without running ads, even if you have a small audience. That's the workshop I'm teaching here, and those are the solutions that I'm going to give to you today. Now, who is this podcast for? This episode is for those of you guys who, again, are subject matter experts, coaches, and consultants, and you may want to launch a podcast, or you have a podcast and it feels really saturated in the industry, and you're wondering, you know, nobody's going to pay to advertise on my podcast. Maybe you have less than 10, 15, 20,000 downloads, right? But so how do you make money from your podcast? The truth of the matter is I'm going to give you our exact framework on how we have made money and profited from this podcast directly into our business. So you're in the right place if you're interested in podcasting, having your own show, not being a guest, if you're interested in having your own show, or if you have your own show and maybe you're not making money from it, maybe you don't know how to turn listeners into buyers. I'm pulling back the curtains and giving you every single thing here. So at the end of this, you are going to have a proven funnel that you can apply to your show. You are going to understand our strategy, and you're going to be able to actually take implementation tools that I'm giving you and be able to apply it to your show. So stay around and let's dive in if that is what you want. Are you guys ready? All of the show notes can be found by visiting sweetlifeco.com. This is episode number 303. Shout out to all the 303 Boulder, Colorado area code people, even though that's totally irrelevant to the podcast. You know, I just had to give a shout out there to 303. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the show, you guys. There's going to be no breaks, no crazy music in the middle. This is you and me on scene here at Podcast Movement going through these steps. So step number 1 to build a profitable business from your podcast is to have a predictable show structure. One of the things that you might have realized, especially if you've been listening to this show for a long time, is I have a certain format that I go through. Well, I should say I try to go through at least on 9 out of 10 episodes. And I'm going to give you our exact format. But before I do that, I need to tell you one very important thing. Whether you have an interview type show or whether you have a solo show, it's really important that you are the centerpiece of your show. And if you already have a show and you aren't sure, I want you to ask yourself this question. Do your listeners know why they need to buy you? Do they know the problem you solve? Because sometimes if you have an interview show, you're so busy, which is fantastic, interviewing all these other great people. If you're trying to build a profitable business on the backside of your show, you need to become the centerpiece of trust. And the framework that I'm going to give you is going to help you do that. Now, this is totally our framework. We've been using it for 6 years. So I promise you that it works. But I'm also telling you, you need to take it and tweak it and make it your own. Don't copy my exact framework, right, guys? But I want you to take this framework and make it yours. So with a predictable show structure, what happens is that when your listeners show up, their brain is not overworking trying to navigate what's happening here. What are they talking about? What can I get out of this? Because our brains, they're kind of lazy. And when we ask your listeners' brains to exert a lot of calories to figure out, why do I need to listen to this show? And why do I need to hire this coach or buy their programs or services? We're asking their brains to do a lot of work. So by having a predictable show structure, we're reducing the work, because we know that podcast listeners are listening in their car, from work, while they're at the gym, while they're cooking dinner. They're multitasking while they're listening. So having a predictable show structure is really going to help you to make sure that your listeners are getting exactly what they need out of your show. When you do this, you're going to build trust. You are going to help your listeners understand that you value their time, and you're going to have returning listeners come back again and again and again, and they're going to actually purchase your services because they know that you respect them, you deliver high quality content, and that your show is a place where they can go find solutions. So here is our predictable show structure. The first part of our show, in the beginning of every show, I have what's called a prerequisite. And a prerequisite is where I will say, hey, listen, this is who this show is for. If you're in this place, if you need this, want this, or trying to learn this, or trying to do this, this is a great episode for you. But then at the beginning of the show, just like I said in the beginning of this, it is not for those of you guys who want to know about guest podcasting. I also will tell you who this is not for. You know why? Because I respect your time. You respect my time. Everybody's happy because we respect each other. So the first step in the framework of a predictable show structure that we use is pre-qualifying and disqualifying listeners from our show. The second step in the framework is where we share the opt-in. Just like I shared with you, go to the show notes. You also can have a lead magnet for your opt-in. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to follow this structure. We have a very powerful tool that I gave away for free, a podcast movement that I'm also going to give to you guys. So when you go to the show notes for this episode, number 303, you are going to find all of the implementation tools, all of the worksheets, and I'm also giving you the slides from this talk from Podcast Movement. So we're going to give you a ton of things. So now let's apply that to your show. You say your prerequisite, and then you say your opt-in. What does that opt-in look like? And then you share the end results. So again, the end results of this show, or you're going to have a funnel that you can duplicate and make your own. And you're going to be able to understand how you can make money from your show as a coach, consultant, or subject matter expert without running ads or without having advertisers to your show. Because frankly, your audience might not be big enough that an advertiser wants to pay to get on your show. So again, the first 3 steps of a framework are prerequisite, opt-in, and end result. And then you're going to go into your show content. I'm actually in my show content now because I'm already speaking to you. I'm already teaching you. But you're going to go into your show content, whether that's an interview or whether that is you teaching a training or delivering a monologue or whatever that is, whatever you do on your show. After the content of the show, which is the bulk of the show, the meat and potatoes, there are 2 other steps to this framework, and you're going to hear these at the end of this show. The next one is the implementation. It's a recap of what you talked about. It's a recap of what those end results were that you said in the beginning and how people can actually implement. So it's recap and implement. This is where you would share your call to action. This is where you would share your link to purchase your consulting program or schedule a call with you. This is where you have literally a direct call to action to the monetization piece of your business. Because if we aren't actually monetizing the podcast yet, we have to monetize your programs and services on the backside of it. That's how we make money from your show. So that implementation, that call to action is very, very important. Don't forget it. And then the last part of it is asking for people to share your show, especially if you're a newer show, you don't have a ton of listeners yet. It's really important that you ask. People want to share, but sometimes we have to remind them, hey, listen, can you please share this show with your friends? Because we don't have advertisers on this show, and we might not even run advertisements to the show. So sometimes that is the most important thing, is to ask. So to recap the show framework, we have prerequisite, opt-in, end result, content, implementation, and ask. So take notes on this. If you aren't, again, go to the show notes at sweetlifeco.com. Click on the podcast, episode 303, and I'll give you all these slides and a whole bunch of more things. All right, let's keep going here. Step number 2 is to build what we call an intuitive lead magnet. The thing is that not all lead magnets work in a way that we need them to work for your show. So your lead magnet should, and listen very carefully, holy moly, I hope you guys can hear me. I cannot even hear my own voice, so I really hope this is a good mic here. With your intuitive lead magnet, it has a couple very specific jobs. It is going to categorize, qualify, disqualify, or rate your listeners. Okay? And I'm going to tell you how to do that here in a minute. It is going to give them more information about themselves. And it's going to provide a roadmap to the progression that they can go through and grow through with your company. In addition, it is going to serve as the guidepost for your prerequisites. So, will people actually get results? Who should listen to what episode? And when you do this right, your lead magnet is going to label, it's going to tag your listeners, it's going to give you a segment of listeners, and it's also going to tell you if you're hitting your target audience. And let me explain to you exactly how we do that, because that might seem a little overwhelming. I'm going to unpack our exact strategy for you. I recommend that you create a lead magnet in the form of a quiz or an assessment that is based on your methodology, process, roadmap, consulting framework. Maybe it's based on the topics that you teach in. Your lead magnet should align with a proven process, method, or framework that is your intellectual property that came out of your genius brain. All right? And so let me give you an example of how we do this here on the Sweet Life Entrepreneur Podcast. You guys have been listening for 6 years. You guys know all this already, okay? You know our tricks. We create a quiz, and that quiz tells our listeners what level of business growth they're in. And when they understand the level of business growth, and you go to our podcast website, our shows, our episodes are tagged to a level of business growth. So if you're in phase 3, that you're going to listen to the episodes aligned with phase 3. And that's the kind of lead magnet I want you to create with your own quiz or your own assessment based on your intellectual property from your show. Now, I can't cover all this right here, but I'm literally giving you an hour-long training on how to create an intuitive quiz for your show based on your method. That is one of the many bonuses that I'm giving with this talk here at Podcast Movement. And of course, I'm going to give it to all you guys too. So go to the show notes and grab that. So let's say that you have your quiz in place. What I really want to hone in on right now is, what do you actually do with that quiz? So there are 5 steps to actually then use that quiz to make your business more profitable on the backside of your show. The first one is to do what I said, tag each show with an outcome to the quiz. So whether somebody lands in level 1 or level 6, your shows and the content you deliver, even if you're interviewing somebody, should align with an outcome based on your quiz or your assessment. It's very important to tag each show to the outcome for your quiz. Number 2, at the beginning of every single one of your episodes, you're going to go on, you're going to show in your show, and you're going to say, hey, listen, if you're in level 5, if you're in level 4, if you scored an A or a B or a C or whatever on our intuitive quiz, this show's for you. And you're already, see how I'm disqualifying or pre-qualifying, and you're going to be able to do that at the beginning of every show. And I'm going to give you the language that we use. Exactly. This show is for people in blank of my, and then insert your quiz or your roadmap name. And then you say, if you don't know where you are in our genius process, pause this show for a second here and go take my short quiz. And so automatically everybody's like, wow, well, I don't want to waste my time and listen to a show that isn't for me. And I would really like to know where I am. You know, we're all like suckers for quizzes. I would really like to know where I am in April's process of business growth, right? So they're going to go and they're going to take your quiz. So you do that at the beginning of almost every episode as it flows, as it pertains. And if they don't know where the quiz is, you need to have a very clear verbal call to action. For example, go to my show notes or text the word quiz to this number. You need to have very clear verbal calls to action, because if you give them a long URL, they are never going there. So number 1 is tag each show. Number 2 is qualify each show and tell people who it's for in the beginning of the episode. And then number 3 is, if they haven't taken your quiz yet, tell them very easily how to go find and take your quiz. Number 4, what we do is we then put the label of each one of the outcomes of our quiz at the top of every show notes. So when you go to our show notes, because you're totally going to go there, right, to get all of our free stuff, you're going to see on top that it says, who is this episode for? ? It says this episode is for established entrepreneurs who are in phases 2 through 4 of my system. And then there's a hyperlink to go take the quiz if they haven't taken it yet. I want you to do that in your show notes, because we're making the actual assessment a part of the ecosystem of your show. And then the last thing that we do for good measure is we've also built our podcast website that all of our shows can be sorted based on the outcome of our business quiz. So you can also take that extra step. And that is step number 2, even though I just gave you 5 steps in 2 total steps. So far I've told you that to create a predictably profitable business on the backside of your podcast without running ads to it or running ads on it, that you need to, number 1, have a predictable show structure where you are the centerpiece. People know why they need you, even if you have guests. Number 2, I recommend that you have an intuitive quiz that can integrate with every single one of your shows. And then the very third thing is to make an irresistible offer. This is really important for you guys to know. Again, if you can't monetize a show because you're not getting 50 or 100,000 downloads per episode, I don't have that. Let's be real. I've been podcasting 6 years. I don't have that. And we have had advertisers approach us for advertising, but it's just, I just don't want them on our show here, right? It's frankly, an advertiser is not going to pay me, I'm being really honest with you guys, as much money as I make off of clients having a relationship with me and hiring us on the backside of this show. I have made more money doing that than an advertiser would ever pay me to advertise on my show. Okay? Being really real with you guys. All right. So here's a couple of stats for you. 28% of podcasters have made a purchase from hearing about an offer on the show. So I recommend that you actually make direct offers for your own coaching programs and products on your show. Number 1, advertise your own stuff on the show. That statistic comes from HubSpot. And then here's another stat for you. 60% of podcast listeners say they've actually looked up products or taken action on a service after hearing an advertisement. So again, whether it's your free lead magnet that we talked about, or it's an actual paid product, we know that 28% have actually bought and 60% are going to go look at that product and check it out. Imagine if that's your product. I don't believe you should be shy about sharing your solutions on your show, especially with people that already know, love, and trust you. In this third step, when we're talking about building an irresistible offer, it's very important that you understand that your offer, your program, your solution has to be aligned with your podcast, right? So for a profitable podcast, you have to have an aligned offer. So what do I mean by alignment? You should, if you're using the intuitive quiz or assessment strategy that I shared with you here on the show, your solutions should provide a direct response to a certain outcome in your quiz. So for example, if somebody is in phase 3 of our business growth roadmap, I have programs and services exactly curated for them. If they're in phase 2, that's business launch. Just so you know, we have our Sweet Life launch program that is specifically curated to them. And so the offer has to be aligned with an outcome. You don't have to have an offer for every outcome. You can have an offer only for one. We just happen to actually serve clients in 2 different phases of our outcome. You don't have to do that. And here are examples of offers that do well for coaching and consulting businesses on the backside of podcast episodes. You can have group coaching. You can have on-demand trainings. You can license your content. If you are a course creator, if you are a trainer, you know I'm a big advocate for showing you guys how to release and license your trainings and courses to other companies and organizations. You can use your podcast to get the word out about that. You can, of course, have high-ticket coaching programs, workshops, courses, retreats, mastermind services. These are examples of programs that do well to sell on the backside of podcasts. And here is why. Because with this type of podcast, people want more access to you. They want to be in your world. They want to hang out with you. They want to have your direct response on their life or their business. And so these type of programs that give them actually more access to you do really well. Even if it's an on-demand training that you already pre-recorded and it's totally scaled, they just want more of you. And it's important to understand that not all offers are created equal. To build a profitable offer, you must deliver predictable, measurable, transformational results. Your program or your coaching program can't suck, all right? It has to be great. We've already identified that it needs to align with your quiz. It actually has to be incredible in and of itself, right? You can't just, well, maybe you can throw it together, but if you throw it together, make sure it's predictable, transformational, and measurable, however long it is in whatever business model it's delivered in. It also should align with, in some capacity, or relate to your quiz or your assessment in some way. And when you do this, you can sell more, you can scale more, you can license your content, and you can stand out. And to make irresistible offers that build $1 million service-based businesses, coaching and consulting businesses, these things are required. Okay, you can't just have any offer. And so a profitable podcast hinges on having great offers. When your programs are irresistible to your listeners, they will buy them. And here's the deal. When you follow this framework that we have talked about here, you have created literally the most mouth-watering, irresistible offers for your audience because they took your quiz, because you already know exactly what they're struggling with. You already know exactly what they need. You already know exactly how to deliver them results, and they're already pre-qualified to work with you. They have the quiz result themselves. They can go back and take that quiz 1,000,000 times. So when you're on your show and you're saying, hey, listen, guys, I am launching a retreat. We're going to go to wherever you want to go in a month from now for all of you guys to solve the problems based on this one outcome in my quiz. If you haven't taken my quiz, go take it. If you've already taken the quiz and you know this is your outcome, this is exactly what you've been looking for. And I'm telling you what, guys, when you go, honestly, you did the work. This is not like a scam. You have done the work to develop an intuitive quiz based on your genius, your intellectual property, and based on the problems that your company solves. And this is actually so ethical. This is like the most ethical way to do sales, in my personal opinion, because you are not making this offer to anybody except for those that already pre-qualified themselves based on an assessment that they took with their own information. You are only making an offer to help them based on the people that already said, hey, listen, this is exactly where I am. I need your help. And then you're coming on the phone or email or however, and you're saying, hey, listen, you're in phase 3 of my quiz. I have the solution you've been waiting for. Do you want it? And this is how we build a profitable business on the backside of your podcast. This is how we've generated over $1 million in direct sales from the Sweet Life Entrepreneur podcast, because of the fact that this is the structure. This is super secret sauce. Please don't go teach this somewhere else. Just share my episode. I'm putting it out here to help you guys. Okay, don't take it, don't steal this unless you're using your own business. You have permission to do that. It's really important that you understand that by doing this, you are doing your listeners the best service that you can, even if you have an interview show, because they have a deep connection with you and they trust you and they know that you're looking out for their best interest. And this is how we build a profitable business on the backside of podcasting, even if you're new. Even if you only have 10,000 downloads, it doesn't matter because it's so curated. How many of you guys know that you don't have to have a huge list or hundreds of thousands of downloads to make money? I mean, look at me as an example. Nobody knows me. That's like, I'm going to go up here on stage at Podcast Movement and share all this. I'm a nobody, you guys. Nobody has a clue who I am. But I have built a very profitable business on the backside of this exact structure I'm giving you. And that's why it's so cool. That's why I still use this structure generally. I will say for the first probably 3 years, I was really religious about it. Now I've kind of gotten a little more lackadaisical about it. But in those first, 3 years of the show, it was like religiously here. And it created lifelong listeners and frankly, great friends that I have made that have become our clients from the show. And so I'm so excited to be able to share this with you guys. And I'm super excited to share it here on stage. Obviously, big difference recording here with you and then standing in front of hundreds of people. I'll share with you guys a video. Hopefully I do okay. But I wanted to unpack this for you. And selfishly, I wanted to practice this on you before I go up there on stage. So another thing that I'm going to unpack here and I want to share with you a little bit, but it's not going to come across real well here on an audio podcast or even video, but I'm also breaking down the numbers for the audience here at Podcast Movement. I'm breaking down like the number of downloads, the percentage of people we expect to take action based on the download, how to convert them, all of those things. I wouldn't do you a big service here if I tried to share it with you verbally on the show, but I want to let you know that you're going to get the slides when you go to our show notes, and you are also going to get more worksheets to implement these numbers. So you're going to be able to see them all. So go grab them. It's free. It's my gift to you. Take it. Okay, let's recap what we talked about here on episode number 303. We talked about in order to build a predictable business on the backside of podcasting without running ads or paying for ads, or having advertisers pay you on the show, even if you have a small list and a small audience, that you can build a profitable business too. And I gave you this structure, which is ours. The first one is having a predictable show structure so that people know how to interact with you and what they can expect from your show. Please make sure that you are the centerpiece and people know why they need you, even if you have an interview-based show. Number 2 is having an intuitive lead magnet. We recommend a quiz. I'm giving you a whole training on how to build an intuitive lead magnet for your show or your business or whatever you want to use it for. So go get the training on the quiz. And then number 3 is making sure your offers are irresistible. You guys know what we do at the Sweet Life Company is we help you build offers that are so good, people feel stupid not buying your services. And so if you're struggling and you don't have $1 million offer ecosystem, come work with us at the Sweet Life Company. Go to sweetlifeco.com and let's book a call. Or if you have great courses and offers and programs and you want to learn how to license those, we also help you. Here's a little insight. If you're in phase 3 or phase 4 of our quiz, those are the solutions we provide to you guys. And I'm really excited to do that. And so that's what we talked about today on the show. That's what I'm going to be teaching here at Podcast Movement. You can find all of the show notes by going to sweetlifeco.com, click on the podcast button, and this is episode number 303. There's all these people behind me. It's so cool. I'm so happy to be here. It's actually my first time at Podcast Movement. I really hope you guys can hear me. Riverside guys loaned me this mic. Shout out to Riverside. They really are awesome. We've just had such great results recording our podcast here with them, both audio and video. And if you haven't yet, please share this show with your friends. I would really appreciate it. Share it on social media, share it on LinkedIn, and tag me at any point in time, April Beach Life, or use the hashtag Sweet Life podcast. Thank you guys so much. Super glad that you're here and that I could practice on you. All right, I'll see you guys soon.